Hello everyone. Welcome to another .NET and AI community standard. Today I'm with Alex, Jordan, and hey, I feel your sunny Pacific Northwest. I feel there. I'm afraid of the sun here in Canada. When you have a sunny day here in the winter, that's literally the coldest day ever. So in the winter, sun here is not fine. But hey, hello everyone. I see a lot of people from Philippines, India, Calgary, and more. And hey, today I'm here with Alex and Jordan. And I think Alex is your first time here, yes?
First time on this call, yeah. Done a couple
Perfect.
others.
Do you want to introduce yourself so people can know you a little more?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I'm Alex Wolf. I'm a content developer here. I've worked mostly in the docs area. I've been doing a lot with AI lately. So yeah, it's great to be here. Got some cool stuff to look at today. So
Yes, we have a super cool. I'm going to do a kind of a teaser. We're going to do some vector search with images using ChromaDB, something that we announced literally last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, the SDK to do ChromaDB with extension.
Ago,
Yes. And also, Jordan, you've been here a couple of times, but for the new people in the audience, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a little bit since I've been on here. So I'm from the .NET team. I'm working on kind of all things around AI with regards to looking at how we can make it a better experience for you as .NET developers to build your own apps that integrate AI functionality. So lately, I've been focusing a bit on looking into tooling and things we can do, like spoiler alert for today, templates, and give you a little overview of what that looks like. But also I've been working with the team around our samples and docs and different presentations at a few conferences last year. So good to be here. And always fun to join you, Bruno.
Oh, no. I will assume that the people are here, they don't know me. If you know me, you are not here. So that's how we have people here. But hey, Bruno here for the advocates team. And before we start, because we have a lot of things to talk today, just a friendly reminder that 2 weeks ago, we launched the Generative AI course for beginner. Feel free to go to the repo and give us your feedback. We finished early this morning a Discord call with the AI community, and they wanted to know if they can use OmniSharp and more. Hey, people have crazy ideas around AI, and I'm collecting feedback to see what we can do, how we can help with these kind of things. And hey, the Gen AI net, how we call it internally, is a great place to start. So, Saros mentioned that couple of C# code that it doesn't work. Please, if you want to open an issue in the repo, in example, or in one of the SDKs, we can take a look. But I may know the one that you mentioned because I find something that we need to upgrade also in the documentation. But thanks for sharing this. This is what we try to do. So for a start today, let me clean this. Let me clean the banners and more. AI template. Jordan, do you want me to share your screen? Do you want to talk a little about this? Kind of do an intro. We are all here to learn.
Excellent. And I was giving you a link in our back chat here, Bruno, with that blog post. If you want to share that out about ChromaDB, for some reason I can't share it in the public chat. But yeah, templates. Let me jump over and show you a little bit about what we're playing around with here. So pretty soon we'll send out, I have a blog post for an early preview of this template support. But if I dive right in, we're getting a first template to help with getting into like kicking the tires as you're exploring creating chat. So this is an AI chat web app template. And I'm showing it in Visual Studio. You can use this in VS Code. You could use this in straight from the CLI. Any place supporting templates. And we're just going to do a quick example of working with a local chat. So what we're doing with the templates here is we got a lot of feedback from folks in the docs, trying out our quick starts. And there's a bit of just boilerplate that you have to get in place to get started, to even start playing around. So what we wanted to do was give you a nice setup starting point kind of starter app for chat, which is really like the hello world of AI. There's a lot you can do with AI beyond chat, but a great place to just start is play with these chat experiences. So that's what the point of this is. It gives you basic infrastructure set up locally to just start playing. So in my environment, I'm going to start with all local and choose Ollama. We've got options here for using Azure, OpenAI, GitHub Models, OpenAI. And I'm also going to use a local on-disk vector store we've got for prototyping, and we can touch on these details in a moment. But if I click create on this, we're going to get a project here in VS. There is, for this first preview, you'll see a README that, depending on the settings you chose, help tell you how to get set up for the template. And in my case, I've already got this environment set up, so I can just hit run and show you what the app looks like, and then we can break it down real quick. So while this is running, some of you that have been on here before have probably heard of Ollama. If not, Ollama is a great tool out there that you can install on Windows, on the Mac, and Linux that lets you locally run a set of AI models. And in this case, this sample, we're using one called Llama 3.2. This models could work on a machine with a CPU. In a lot of cases, you're going to get the best results on a machine with a GPU, which is what I'm using in this case. And so I've got Ollama running. I've got the models all set up following the directions from the template. And now when I hit run, the app has ingested these 2 sample PDFs, and I can start asking questions about them. So I could say, what's included in the survival kit? You'll see we've got a nice Blazor UI for a basic chat interface here. And it's going to support chat history back and forth as you ask questions over docs. It's doing something called Semantic Search to help look at those documents to find relative portions that relate to your question, and then generate a response, in this case, telling me what's in the survival kit. It includes, we'll do another search here in a second, but it'll also include citations to points in the documents that were referenced, as well as follow-on questions like, oh, can you check the expiration dates of the items that are in, for example. And this should give us some reference to...
Are we using also the local model, the Llama 3.2? I think you select there to generate
this one I'm running right now. Yep.
Oh, cool. That's nice.
So let's see. How do I get started with my new watch? And it's kind of, and now you can just start playing around with some queries and things. This one, well, yeah, this is already Llama 3.2 and using a local model for embedding to do some of this. So now it's not showing me citations right now. Sometimes you get some interesting behavior. This is a great example with the AI interactions, some of the challenges you can run into. If I'll run this again in a second with a larger model, maybe I'll get some different results.
Just to do a little recap, because last time that I see this or I see something related to this, I didn't realize that we have a vector store here available. I was thinking that the chat application is just a chat application. So you deploy Ollama with 3.5 or Llama 3.2 or whatever, and you chat. But hey, I really like that you are implementing here the option to have the in-memory vector store. By the way, in the .NET blog, you will probably follow all of the, the announcement that fill all of the code behind this, which is super nice. But hey, I really like it that you have also the chat with your data scenario covered here. And I know that we are going to talk about this a little later, but Sarosh, a link to the repo project template or more, we are going to get there. This is currently in preview. I don't know which is the current status, but Jordan is going to tell us how to get here, use it, and more. But hey, love it, amazing.
Yeah, so we'll share out a blog post on this shortly around how you can get going with it, but we're developing this out in the .NET/extensions repo publicly. So the bits are out there, but that's where we're kind of baking the template, working on a few last fixes right now. Honestly, there's some little tweaks, and then you'll have a blog post soon with like, here's how to get started playing with it yourself. But super close right now. To give you a quick idea of what's in there, we just touched on a little bit of what's in the template, but to power this, what's included in the app that's generated is we've got these different components in Blazor for, let me see if I can get magnifier to play nice here for a moment so you can see this better. We got various chat components for the interactions going on, citations and suggestions. And then there's also included a set of kind of supporting code for the data ingestion. So there's a data ingester included in here that is able to look at a local folder of PDFs. It can see if a new PDF has been added or one removed, and actually update the data in the vector store where we're you could say indexing those basically. And then it's got a bit of support for semantic search, which if you're familiar or not, this is using a thing called RAG, retrieval augmented generation, in which your prompts are augmented with data that was retrieved, in this case, going to a vector store to find chunks of a document that are similar to your query, and we combine those and give you that end result. And so this supports that kind of included in here, and a nice spot to also click around and explore how that's done. And if I focus on one key piece in here, we showed the different providers you can use, like GitHub Models, Azure OpenAI, Ollama. This, to support that, we're using Microsoft.extensions.ai, which is a set of core abstractions for AI interactions you may have heard us talk about before. And with this, the key thing that's changing in this code is this part here where I'm getting an iChat client and an embedding generator. And these are the main thing changing based on the different providers you select. So in this case, I've got my Ollama API client and the model I want to use. If I switch over real quick and we look at what it's like with GitHub Models, I've got the same code that you would use for GitHub Models to set up a connection to GitHub and get the chat client, get an embedding generator. And if we look at Azure OpenAI, I've got the same code you would use with Azure OpenAI to get a client. And basically we get chat client and embedding generator. And for each of these, and in this case, we're also swapping vector store because in this sample, I'm using Azure AI Search. But with the setup of these dependencies, the rest of the code throughout the app is the same. The data ingestion works the same. The chat components work the same. They're all going through these core sets of abstractions. So we're able to kind of mix and match these different pieces in here with Extensions AI.
That's
so that
cool.
would be the main thing I wanted to hit on real quick. If I ran, I could run the other one here would be GitHub Models that we support, which is the one that'll be currently the default when you get started, because it's the nicest balance of getting set up pretty easily, not requiring a GPU locally. But I've already gone through a lot, so I can pause there so we've got questions, or I know we also want to look at the Chroma stuff from Alex.
Yes, no, just a friendly reminder to everyone that if you, I was literally talking about this 1 hour ago. If you have a GitHub account, you have access to GitHub Models. GitHub Models, it's basically a marketplace where you have access to the most popular models, like, I don't know, you have the O1, O3 Mini, the GPT models are there, Llama models are there, DeepSeek is also there, Cohere, Mistral. There are a lot of models that you can use, and they are amazing in terms that you're not going to go to production with that, but they are good enough to basically start to play around with the models. If you want to, in example, there it is, thanks. So that's all of the models that you have, and hey, there are plenty of models. And again, for testing, learning, and more, it's amazing because if you use, in example, Microsoft extensions for AI, you are going to literally change. If you want to switch from GitHub Models with, I don't know, with GPT-4 or O3 or whatever, later to Azure, to just change, as Jordan showed, 2 lines of code, 3 lines of code. You can even do a factory or whatever. Get crazy with the code, but remember that someone is going to read your code, so don't get too crazy. So you can do a lot there. And hey, GitHub Models, again, are free. If you have a GitHub account, you have a daily quota of chat completions, embeddings, and more that you can use. So give it a try. And I really, really like that we add GitHub Models here in the chat template, because it's amazing. We are promoting this and we are talking about this, and we have very good feedback of people learning that. In example here, the 3 one that suggested for you, GPT-4o, probably one of the most popular and used models, DeepSeek, and Llama something here. So it's super, super cool.
I can't help it. I'll show that real quick. The same thing, GitHub Models, and then you'll notice a difference in the responses. So what's included with my survival kit? So in this case, we're now using the OpenAI GPT-4o mini model through GitHub Models. And now, okay, now in this case, you're seeing the citations, at least now they're working well for me. And I'll get a different quality of response because I'm also working with both a much larger general purpose model with GPT-4o mini versus my local Llama 3.2. And the embeddings is using an OpenAI model for embeddings that's much richer, which means I can actually get some better matching on my inputs. And these are both like models you couldn't run locally. They're just so massive. So GitHub Models is a really nice one to start experimenting with. The template walks you through how to set it up, which is really, you get a personal access token through your developer settings. Doesn't need rights to anything publicly. Just get the token, put it into your user secrets for the project and hit run, and then it'll pull it in here to this experience.
Yes, the only advice with models that we learn, and we learn in the bad way, is that if you get crazy with your embeddings, the quota that you have for embedding is very small. So if you, this is working, let me index 10,000 documents, you are probably not going to be there. So it's fine in chats and embeddings, but remember, this is just for testing and learning. So do not go crazy and try to vectorize 10,000 documents. Otherwise, you're going to use all of your embedding quota literally in 5 minutes or something like this. But
yeah,
I'm guessing that these documents are not very big and they are probably good enough to. I will try to find the link with the models. The models limits that we have and everything, but for learning, it's amazing. And again, Microsoft Extension, change 2 lines of code and literally switch from models to Azure or to Ollama if you want to work local. Hey, I like it. I really, really like it. I'm going to ask let me find the name, the Sarosh question. Do we know when people are going to be able to start to play around with this, provide feedback on more? Any estimated day? I don't want to say, okay, February the 27th, 8 a.m. Pacific time, but maybe mid-April, late November, or 2027. Do we know how much time we need to wait until we have access to this?
Literally just in the steps here of a few bug fixes. So I'm thinking the next few weeks, next week or so, next couple of weeks. It's really, really close. So.
Cool. So, hey, if you want to work out, you want to wait, or if you want to test this, follow the channel, follow us, and contact us. We are going to make some. I'm guessing that we are going to promote with a blog post something so people can start to work there. And Jan is saying that, yes, 5 models. Yes, big fan of 5 models. 5.4 is there, and 5.4 is also, I can't talk about that, but it's coming with a lot of new stuff. So there are going to be news around 5 models anytime soon. So Jose is asking here, before we switch and more, if you have questions, I am following the chat. There is a 20-second delay between your questions and what we see. So feel free to drop your question in the chat, but any AI templates for vision transformers?
Not right. Sorry. No, not with this first round of like a preview one. That raises a really good point of like these different use cases. And like this, one of the things we're trying to think of with the templates is how many different scenarios that you have to explore or play with. How do we stay on top of those with templates that usually are kind of set for a while once we're done with them. But this space keeps rapidly changing I think as we go over the next few previews and figure this out, maybe we could add in some vision template work or figuring out that line. For right now, our focus is basic chat, and then also layering in .NET Aspire support with that, for example. But
we're also trying to
get feedback with vision.
We're also trying to get docs coverage of these templates, and so as more get released, we'll try and include them there. I'm really excited about this because I have to create a lot of sample apps for my role, and this removes a lot of the boilerplate and package installation every time. So that'll be cool.
Yes, and we have a question here. I am literally sharing one of the answers. The example of RAG with ingest PDF, ChromaDB, and Net. I'm sharing one that uses Azure AI Search. And the main, when we created this, the ChromaDB wasn't there. So if you want to take a look at this, let me share my screen quickly and I can show you this up and running. This is a full. Where is Bruno? This is me. So this is a full repo that deploys this solution where you have a chat, and very similar what Jordan showed here. You can see in the chat, ask questions. In the back, you have another application, Blazor application, to upload documents. You can upload documents, and it's going to do support to any type of documents because it uses Markdown. Markdown is a super popular Python library that I don't know who created Markdown. I know it was Microsoft, it was us, but I don't know if this came from research, the offer of the CTO, some Microsoft isolated employee here and there. But in order to test and use this, we use CSnakes, another project that allows us to use embedding Python libraries in .NET. Hey, this is a big application, literally you can see here all of the resources that deploy to the cloud because you have Azure AI Search, Keyboard, I don't know how many container apps, you have also an indexer. There is a lot of things here and there that make work. And this is an example, the full process in App Insights. Not ChromaDB, but because it's super isolated in microservices, I'm guessing that switch this to use Chroma instead of Azure AI Search. It's probably not very complicated. But you can take a look at this, and I promise to add in my to-do list to create a branch here that use ChromaDB. Now that it seems to be very popular and more, it probably helps. And local and less Azure. Hey, you can do everything local probably with Ollama and more, and Chroma in a container. I will add it into the wish list. Then I need to fight with my manager to, hey, give me time. I want to build this. Because it's part of the work, but I have other stuff to do. But I will probably try to do something with local with all of this. Yes, it's a nice one. By the way, this is a big one. This is a full, complete one. It have a lot of stuff, but as reference, you can take a look there.
And one thing I might also add, Bruno, so the blog post we've got out on ChromaDB, you'll also see mentioned in there about it paving the way toward support with like Microsoft extensions.vector data. So this is another set of work under development around abstractions for vector data. So as we work with that, the template we had, we'll be able to add in Chroma as another vector source using those abstractions. And so then you would have this local ingestion of PDFs, ChromaDB, dotnet in the mix as well. So I know there's definitely some work going on around like where to go with the vector abstractions and how those support ChromaDB. So that'd be another piece. If I just tie it back toward the template as, one example of like future support, we could consider how to plug
and I am going to be super selfish here. We have this eShopLite, which is literally a browser for products, for outdoor, Contoso, product, whatever. But when we start to create these semantic search scenarios, of course, the first two was in memory and Azure AI Search. And because literally Microsoft Extension for AI make it so easy, I created the ChromaDB version, and this is all part of the Gen AI course, the ChromaDB version, and it took me a couple of hours. I think I spent more time rewriting the README document with reference to the blog post, Chroma, and more than the code per se. But with the same approach, we created the version using DeepSeek, real-time audio, which is not in Microsoft Extension, but it's similar in other parts. So Microsoft Extension, this abstraction level that we have there, really makes simple this kind of thing. So if we go back and try to do net AI apps with Chroma, if we need to switch from A to B to C, it's easy. It's easy. And again, it's easy, but be careful. Do not get very complicated and crazy. I was looking at some samples the other day from a couple of friends, and oh my God, so many abstractions, layer and more that I get completely lost on what we want to do.
If we want one last thing with the templates, there was one question about seeing the GPU being hit with the query. I could do that real quick here with the demo. And then also while I do that, I'd love to hear from everybody before we're handing it over to you, Alex, just comments about your first reaction around like what you thought with the template. What would you have some thought about what you would expect for AI templates with .NET, things you'd like to see. That would just be helpful as we're looking at where do we go with these next? How do we iterate on this? So while some folks type that up, let me show you what this looks like on my GPU on this machine as I run a query. So we should see this go in. It's calling Ollama. You'll see on the right, the GPU is getting a little spike of activity.
And you have a Tesla T4. Oh my God, your house should be on fire. That's a big GPU.
Yeah, that's a VM I'm using in this case.
I know. I'm joking because
Wouldn't that be nice though? I can heat my house.
I don't know if I have enough space here in my computer to fit a Tesla T4. If you don't know about this, while we show the spike in the GPU here, literally right now, search online. This is not the standard GPU that you have at home for playing some Xbox game. This is a big graphic card, the T4. So, wow.
There we go. So we got a few little things. So you see that one jump. I've got a little MacBook next to me. That'd be an interesting one for a demo in the future too. It's very different with that GPU and how it's responding as well, but you get pretty decent performance. It's a M1 MacBook Air, so it's even, what is that? Even like 5 years old or something at this point, and it does pretty well. It kind of stumbles along a little bit because it's also low on the memory specs with that model. But you can get a bit of a ways with some playing around with these things with that, even a low spec GPU. Definitely a more modern machine with a good setup of memory and your just modern decent NVIDIA GPU is a pretty good way to go. I've got another Mac. One of the new Mac Minis that does really well. Not a really high spec one, but kind of a base level. And it's a nice package, enough RAM in there that it works really well for kind of playing around locally and being able to make some progress.
Yes, an example, I recorded a video a long time ago when I show basically Ollama running the same Llama 3.2 Vision model on CPU versus GPU. And I don't have a very powerful GPU. I think it's a RTX 470 or something like this. It was at least 20 times faster, but you can feel the difference. So if you doesn't care which version, but if you have access to a GPU and you have the specific and valid NVIDIA drivers, which is also another topic to see how you install and set up your CUDA or whatever, go and try to use this because it's amazing. And the last question here before we jump to Alex is, can we run this model on AMD or Intel GPUs? Right now, I haven't run this using directly other libraries, but in example, Ollama recognized one of the latest version of Ollama, recognized the latest AMD GPUs. I remember that they made a blog post about this, kind of a big deal because it's not just NVIDIA in the world. We have AMD and Intel. So I'm guessing that if Ollama runs this, you can take advantage of that. Go in that direction. Okay, so I will do one more. Sorry, Alex.
Sorry.
Jordan, can we upload images?
Not in this first one, but that was something we were looking to add in, having a way to chat with an image. It's pretty straightforward, but there were a few little things we had to work out. So it's not in there for the first preview.
That's actually a good segue into the next app.
Yes, that's what I bring this one here because, now we are talking about images. Let's show Alex the scenario. So do you want me, Alex, to bring your screen?
Yeah, sure.
There it is. So tell us about your AI image search.
Yeah, so this is a image search app that I've had kind of floating around in my personal repo for a while. And when I saw that Chroma had an SDK now, I wanted to update it to work with Chroma and see what that would feel like or how much work that would be. It was actually pretty straightforward. This used to use Quadrant, which is another option that's out there, and there's still a branch for Quadrant. But so this app is built in Blazor Interactive Server, and it's using Azure AI Vision Service to generate embeddings for images. And then it's using Chroma as the vector database to store those embeddings and to run vector searches. So I'll just start with a demo of the app, and then we can get into like the architecture and the code and how all this works. on the Chroma side as well. So in this app, I can just search for something like coffee. And if I run this, you can see we get these images back. And I guess if I reset that back on the home screen, you can see there's a bunch of images just loaded into this app right now. And this lets you just free text search. So it's not searching by image name or metadata. It's actually searching using vectors. So all these images have been vectorized, and vectors capture kind of the semantic meaning of these images. So the AI model generates vectors for them that really communicate the meaning and like the relationships between them using vector searches. So if I were to search for something like trees, that comes back, and we have this confidence threshold over here. So this is basically like how close of a match they are. So if I reduce this down to medium, we'll get more results back that may or may not be exactly what you're looking for, because you can keep lowering that confidence value. And we can search for we don't have to just use keywords here. So since this is using vector search, you could search for something like capable of flight. And so 2 airplanes come back, because obviously airplanes can fly, and the embeddings kind of capture that meaning about the images. And of course, there's result limit and stuff like that. But I think this is fun to play around with. So you could search for something like on a plate. Like obviously that's not an image name or anything, and all the items that come back are sitting on a plate. So I think vector search is really fun to play around with. You can upload additional images, and then it vectorizes them and adds them to the database, so they'll show up on the home page and everything like that. So let's talk a little bit about how this app actually works, and I actually have a couple slides for this. So I'm just going to present this real quick. So there's basically 2 flows. There's the image upload flow. So the user is going to upload an image in the browser that's going to get sent to the backend. And the image file itself gets saved into the web directory right now for the app. We don't always put image files in databases directly. A lot of times those are stored, on a server, on a file system, and then pulled in by the browser. But the image is also sent to an AI model for vectorization, or to be vectorized, whatever the proper term there is. And so that actually gets sent out to Azure AI Vision in this case, and that returns a huge vector back that captures the meaning of that image and the context of it. And then that image is saved to the vector database, which in this case is Chroma. So the vector and a couple other data items are saved into the vector database, and the image file itself is saved in the web directory, and you could put that wherever you wanted to in a real app. And then the other flow is the search flow. And so in this case, the user is going to enter a prompt. Obviously, that gets sent to the backend again. And this time, the query is also sent to the AI model. So one of the cool things about Azure AI Vision is that it's multimodal, which is really powerful, because that means your embeddings for different types of media are generated by the same model. And so they can be contextually searched together. And so then we run a vector search using the vector that came back for the search term. So when we searched coffee, that gets turned into a vector or embedding. And then that gets used in the vector search against the database. So it sends back the relevant results to the user, which includes which images were the closest match. And then those images get pulled into the app. So that's kind of the high level flow. And then we can look at kind of how this is built in the app. So as we discussed earlier, this is using Chroma. So there's now an open source Chroma SDK out there for .NET. And so you can go and check that out yourself here, this chromadb.client. So this is an open source project, but it's built for .NET and actually works pretty well in my testing. So check out this blog post and check out that open source project. You can also find out more about Chroma on their website, obviously. For this example, I'm using the ChromaDB container. So you can actually just run Chroma locally in a container. I thought I had that pulled up somewhere here. Yeah, so I don't know if you can see this, but one of the easiest ways to get started with Chroma is to just pull down this Docker image. So for example, I have Docker desktop running. And so here's a Chroma container running. So that's what I'm connecting to locally. And so if we go over into the code, there's kind of 3 pieces of this app that we're concerned about for this demo. The first is just the home component. That's where that UI lives for our Blazor app. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Blazor side of this unless there's questions about this, but it is using MudBlazor. It's a Blazor server interactive app. The more interesting parts are these services. So we have a vision service that talks to Azure AI Vision to generate those embeddings. And then we also have a vector database service that talks to Chroma. And so let's start with the vision service first so we can see what's going on there. So there's 2 methods here, vectorized text and vectorized images. And I designed this with interfaces so that it's flexible with which technologies it uses. That's why we're able to switch over to Chroma pretty easily, because we just have to adhere to this interface, but that's kind of a side note. So in these requests to vectorize the text and vectorize the image, I actually did this a little bit manually. So we're kind of assembling these manual HTTP requests to these URLs using the REST API for Azure AI Vision. For the most part, everything in Azure AI Vision can be done with the SDK packages and with Azure Identity and all that. But in my research, I did not find these endpoints available through the SDK. So I'm actually looking into that right now to see if those are available somewhere. So right now it's just using the REST API. So we go out to our vectorized text endpoint here, and the user's prompt gets sent in for the text flow. And so that goes out to Azure AI Vision, and then it gets the embedding back. And then it's going to use that in the vector search. And so this other method is basically the same thing, except for vectorizing the images when they get uploaded. And we'll walk through this with the debugger in a second to see how this works kind of step by step. And then for the vector database service, this is where all the Chroma magic happens. So we have one method to save an image to the database. And so we're working with this Chroma collection object. And this has all kinds of methods on it. So right now we're using add, but there's also like delete, and you can do all of your kind of CRUD operations here. The Chroma client gets injected into this class, as does the Chroma collection. So that's all set up in the program.cs file, like you usually would. So we kind of just configure a Chroma client and register that for DI. One thing I should mention here is that when you create your collection, you'll want to set the space here to cosine for the algorithm. This was the one that gave kind of the closest results for me for what you'd expect from kind of an AI search app. I think by default it uses L2, so you'll have to switch that to cosine. That took me a minute to realize that. So back in our vector database search service, we have a method to just get all items in the collection. So you can use the Chroma collection.get to do that. And then that'll just bring back all of them. And then for the search function, that's where you can use this vector search query feature of Chroma. So we're just passing in the vector of the prompt. So over another service where we use the vectorized text. So that vectorizes the prompt. And then that gets passed in as the query parameter for our Chroma collection vector search. So that's kind of the basic flow. Let's see if we can kind of show an example of this using the debugger here. So I'll go back to our app here. I'll just run this search again and see if we hit our breakpoint. Yeah, so first we hit our vectorized text method. And so our prompt is on a plate. So that's what we entered in the browser here. And now if we step through this, that's going to get vectorized. So it's going to go out to Azure AI Vision. And that came back already. And so the response string here is this giant set of vectors. So you can see there's a vector property here and it has this array of numbers. So that's the vector for our search term. And if we hit continue, that jumps into our search images method. And so that vector that we just got back is now a parameter. And that gets passed into our Chroma collection search query. So that's going in as the query embedding. And if we continue to step through this, our results will come back. And so it looks like we got 10 results back or so. And then we just order those, and those get returned to the browser. One thing I should mention is that those results come back with a distance value, and that distance value is what we use for this threshold. So basically, the closer or the smaller the distance value is, the more relevant the image is, and then you can kind of just set up like a conditional to check that distance value, and that's how you determine the threshold there for which images get displayed. So that's kind of the basic workflow there for how that search works. But in terms of Chroma, yeah, the key here is just this Chroma collection. This is what you would use to interact with your collection database. That's the Chroma running in our container. And so, yeah, this was pretty painless to move over. It's been great so far. The SDKs, I haven't had any issues with it. So that gives kind of an overview of the app. I guess we could open up for some questions and see if there's anything else.
We have some questions. I am answering questions also in the chat here. So we have some questions. And by the way, we have our friend. Where is David? David. I'm scrolling here. So David says, locally with the container sounds an opportunity for .NET Aspire. So yes, here, this is the Chroma DB that I created and shared, something that is managed by Aspire. And you can see here that builder, let's create a SQL, let's create a Chroma, and then pass the endpoint from Chroma here. So yes, you can do this with Aspire, and it's going to be as easy as, and I think that with the latest yesterday's Aspire 9.1, we can even do a little, I can improve that a little more to make it more robust. But yes, Aspire is there. Then we have another question, and I don't know enough to answer this one. And I think it's also depend a lot on the scenario and more. Quadrant or Chroma?
So I've converted this app to use Quadrant, Chroma, and Azure SQL vector columns. And basically the volume of images that I'm working with, they've all been pretty similar. I would guess once you start getting into like thousands of operations or, mass indexing and stuff like that, you could start to see performance differences. But just in my testing with these local scenarios, they've been pretty comparable. I haven't noticed one is faster than the other. The local stuff is very responsive, obviously, and if you're using like a powerful GPU or a powerful computer, obviously you'll get good results locally. So sorry, I don't have a better answer for that, but I haven't done benchmarking on large volumes of data.
I'm sure there is some benchmarking there. I mean, we can figure out, we can search and share, but thanks for sharing your experience. I didn't test the same scenario in both. I used Quadrant for a while. Now I'm testing stuff with Chroma, but I don't have an answer for both. But yes, it makes sense to see what we have there. We have, by the way, just in case, everything that we are showing today, all of the links from the blog post, the demo repo with Alex, AI search, and more, and basically how you can use also the image retrieval with using multimodal embeddings, which is super cool. It's all here in the resources of the video. So if you go to YouTube and check the video in the resources collection, you will find everything here. And we have another question. Let me go back to you, Alex, but this, I think this is for Jordan. Will the AI templates cost money?
Oh, that's a great question. So no, we're not charging for those as far as using them. Now, the money that I'm guessing here in this, you're wondering about the cost of running the AI queries. And so depending on the provider you use, if you go against if you're going against OpenAI or Azure OpenAI, then that incurs a cost as far as token usage for your interactions. For a lot of kicking the tires, playing around, the sample I showed you, those scenarios I ran through, we're talking a very small amount, like very, very small, pennies in the US currency. The Ollama GitHub models, they don't have a cost. With local models, you maybe get a trade-off in some quality. And GitHub models, you mentioned, Bruno, the trade-off there is some rate limiting and quota you work within. But yeah, if you go against OpenAI or Azure OpenAI, then those have a slight cost that gets incurred as you start interacting with those services. But for these scenarios that we're going through, running the 2 documents through, embeddings being generated, which we also cache so that the next time you run the template, we're not going to re-embed those. As long as you're playing, with some basic queries and stuff, you can do a lot, and it's not much of a charge at all, but there's a little bit of one.
Yes, and also on top of that, and keep me honest here, this is a template. So this is kind of a starting point to build something. Even if from scratch it's a fully functional app, the whole idea is as a template, you will probably start to grow here and maybe start to split your application and have, a file share somewhere and more. So as a template, even if it's working, figure out your needs and requirements to see how you are going to work. And that's the moment that, I was talking the other day with John, one of our managers, and he mentioned that he wants to add some AI. He has a very, very popular extension in Visual Studio Code, and he wants to add some AI. But he's trying to figure out who is going to pay, because I can't remember the numbers, but the extension has more than 3 million of downloads. So if a lot of 3 million people are starting to do very small texting and chatting and embeddings, and that's a big number. That's a number that you don't want to probably put in your personal account. I don't know. It's going to take me some time to talk with my family here to explain that, hey, I am paying for this or more. So yes, starting is fine as a template, but remember that if you start to grow here, make some numbers, and if you go to the cloud. If you go locally with Ollama, fine. And as Jordan mentioned, the rate limits in code spaces are mostly for learning and testing, so not for a production application. And in this, I have a question, Alex, because I am kind of new to the AI vision services. And do we have an SDK, or we need to do kind of doing a super raw HTTP client? Because you are doing an HTTP client call here, yes? I'm taking a look at the... Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So here I'm doing pretty manual HTTP requests. There is an SDK for Azure AI Vision. The reason I was using these raw HTTP requests is the specific endpoints that I was looking for didn't appear to be part of the SDK, but I need to look into that more or verify that. But in general, yes, there is an Azure AI Vision SDK. So this is the service out in Azure, and if you go up to the documentation, a lot of it is covered using NuGet packages and SDKs. So I need to look into that more. But from what I could tell, the only option for this particular feature for the multimodal embeddings was through the REST API. So that's why I just started building the request manually there.
Okay, I was browsing the documentation, and I get confused here because I see that we are in version 4 of the service. So I say, wow, version 4, I like it. And a lot of people like it. This is not a preview something. There it is. This is something that is been already, but it seems that, yes, this is a specific feature only there. So I get confused here when I start to see this, and I also see another part where they talk about an SDK. But at the end, it's also not a very complicated one.
Like we're essentially just converting these sample curl requests here into HTTP requests in .NET. But currently, it doesn't seem like there's a way to do this directly through an SDK call. So that's something that I need to verify. But that's been my research so far.
Hey, no problem. This is all going back to Scott and all of the people in the team saying we need an SDK. We want to use this. Probably save a couple of lines of code. So no, hey, that's amazing.
For example, there is this.
Yes, that's the one that I saw.
So most of the upper.
But it doesn't support, and they have, the 4 big ones, C#, Java, JavaScript, and Python, but it doesn't support this specific endpoint, this specific scenario. Okay.
Right.
I got confused there. And if someone wants to go to your repo, I know that you have it somewhere here, and want to use it, They can fork the repo, they can test, but they need to create the resources. The repo doesn't create the resources in Azure. They need to create everything manually and set the secrets.
Yeah, so I'd like to convert this to be an Azure Developer CLI template so that it can create the resources for you. But right now, yeah, I can share out this link, but it's a repo out on GitHub, and there's different branches for the different technologies. So main, this one is using Quadrant, and then we're on the Chroma DB branch, and now there's also an Azure SQL Vector branch, which is another interesting one. I still need to add a README here, but yeah, basically you would go out and create your Azure Computer Vision service, or AI Vision service that's called now. And that's just kind of a one-page form. It's actually one of the easier resources to create. So you just go to, this loads for a second. Yeah, so you just go to this page and you create your vision service. And then once you have that created, you would grab your key or your endpoint. And then the only other thing you need here is your Chroma container running locally. So that's what I showed before, where you just start that up, and there's a standard localhost URL that connects to. That part is pre-configured in the app, but you will need to start up the container locally.
I may give it a try trying to Aspirify. I don't know how to put Aspire on top of this so Aspire create the resources. I will try to give it a try to see, because Chroma is there and
We should
it's just need to figure out.
Yeah.
Yes, how to create the device set for deploying and more for the computer vision. But I'm guessing that it's already there, so it just need to figure out the right code here and there. So I like it, and I like it a lot. And oh my God, I have a question here in my side, but I forgot about that. Keen asking about the Discord. Let me take a look. Template for vision, cost money. I think we have everything here. So anything else? 5 minutes to go. Anything else, Alex, Jordan, that you want to share?
Nothing else right now. A blog post coming soon with the templates, and excited to get feedback on see what people think of it.
So there is
Oh, we have a free version. We have a free tier here for this. Didn't know.
Sorry, I'm lagging here in my audio. But there is a free tier, I believe, of the Azure AI Vision, but it's limited to 20 transactions a month there, or it's per minute, sorry.
Hey, that's always nice. That means that you can test this and learn this for free. So, hey, as I said, I'm going to give it a try and see how it works. That said, let me remove your screen, Alex, here, the three of us. Thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks, Jordan. Looking forward, Jordan, for the blog post where we can see and start to play around with the AI templates and more. And hey, it's going to be a next month is going to be a super interesting one. I can't say more, but a lot of things are coming. So I appreciate that you come here to share with us this stuff, because we have more things coming. So Alex, Jordan, thanks a lot.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Bruno.
And thanks to everyone online. See you next one. Goodbye.
Take care, all.